Hello, Cool-Man229 here with another Topic of the Week video. This week I'm with
Punkrockula. Hey!
So, I'm in Florida right now, so we can finally do a video together.
Yo!
This week's video is going to be on Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
Potter.
Okay. The topic is Rowling's failure to really flesh out Slytherin and Draco. It was as if she set them up to foil Harry and Gryffindor, but forgot to do it. She has a lot to say about this because she is a Slytherin.
I am, in fact, a Slytherin. I took the quiz on Pottermore and everything. I took several quizzes across the internet, and I get Slytherin every time. So yeah, I have a lot to say about Slytherin.
And even though I always been a Hufflepuff, I always get annoyed at how Rowling treated Slytherin and Draco especially.
Yeah, Draco had so much potential, but they never took the opportunity to really flesh him out as Harry's rival, as Harry's opposite, and just like threw him in there. It was like, yeah, here he is, and then we never really get to see him progress. Like, he gets like very little development by the end of Deathly Hallows. I mean, we see him become somewhat good.
Well, and then we see him struggling with this, especially by the latter half of the series.
Yeah,
we see him struggling with, he's like, I don't want to be an evil, murderous psychopath, but my parents want me to be, and Voldemort wants me to be, and I have to live up to this, and I also have to, like, help, basically help my father regain some sort of fame as a Death Eater. And he's and he has all this like pressure on him, and Rowling never does anything with that. Yeah,
she really doesn't. Like, we see Draco going through like all of this internal conflict. Like, I don't want to support Voldemort and the Death Eaters, but my family's there, and I have this reputation to live up to. I gotta, live up to the family name. I have to impress my family. I have to impress Voldemort. Even though this isn't who I want, I still have, things to do. I have to be, I have to support my family. But we never really get to see that internal struggle. We barely even get to see Draco at all in the movies. There's so much that's left out from the books in the movie. I mean, even in the books, he's poorly written, but
it's like, and we get some, and they did, to their credit in the movies, what little credit we can give them, they did put some of that stuff with Draco, but they had almost nothing to work with in the book.
Yeah, they really didn't. I mean, like I said, unfortunately, there is more in the books than there is in the movie, but that's not really saying much. There's very little in the book about Draco.
Yeah.
And it's really, really upsetting to me because when I first got into Harry Potter, Draco obviously was my favorite because he was the Slytherin, the only Slytherin representation we really got other than Snape.
And Crabbe and Goyle.
Yeah. I mean, we did get some, better, good Slytherin representation down the road.
Especially, with Slughorn.
Yeah, with Slughorn, and I loved him, but still, we didn't see much with Draco, and I was really hoping to see some, development, because I knew by the end, because Draco was such a fan favorite, obviously, he was gonna get, redemption.
A bigger role, right?
Yeah, but we really don't see that.
He honestly, he got a reduced role as things went on, despite the fact that he was more and more relevant to the plot. I felt like he was more involved in the first 3 books.
He really was.
And then later on, he's actually been tasked with assassinating Dumbledore, and he barely has a role in the Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, which really makes no sense. There were so many things that Draco could have done. So many opportunities just missed.
We could have developed. I mean, like the Anon was saying, it was like he was set up to be this sort of villainous foil or antagonistic foil, I think is a better word.
Right.
To Harry, they both have money, but in where he was raised by his parents, Harry, had no parents.
Right.
But Draco turned out to be a snot, and Harry turned out to be a decent kid, and it's like, and like they did, it really felt like he was set up to be the rival, but we never got any development between that. It was almost as if he stayed the exact same for 5 books.
That's exactly it. I mean, Draco obviously is supposed to be Harry's match, but we never
Hell,
see...
They that's played up in the books, and even more so in the movie, in the Chamber of Secrets, the dueling scene, because they basically made that entire dueling section of the movie all about Draco versus Malfoy, or Draco versus Harry.
Exactly, and we never really see, like, that conflict between Draco and Harry. Draco stays just a snob, that one annoying kid that you have in class. We all know the annoying kid that bothers you in class, that you are really frustrated with, but you just kind of want him to go away and you don't do anything about it. That's Draco. Draco was never a real rival to Harry. He's supposed to be Harry's match, like Harry's opposite. But we never really get to see that. We just see, like, bickering between the two, but never actual rivalry between the two, even though that's what Draco is supposed to be.
Yeah.
They just really focus more on Harry versus Voldemort. Oh, but by the way, here's Draco. Just, okay. And
featuring Draco from the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, featuring Draco from the Harry Potter series. And especially by the end, when it's like, okay, Draco's been a snob this whole time, let's make him a good character. Okay, but we really didn't see much development for Draco as the bad character to Harry. So
as the rival, as his opposite.
Yeah, so saying that we're going to give him a redemption arc, well, what are we redeeming him of? Yeah, he was a little bit of a snob, but other than saying, hey, Draco's nice now, there was really not much to redeem from him, because by the time he is tasked to join the Death Eaters, we already know that he doesn't want to join. We already know that Draco is uncomfortable with it, and he's doing it out of obligation. So it just kind of jumped to that redemption arc by showing, oh, Draco's not evil after all. Draco was never the evil guy. Look, he's so reluctant to join the Death Eaters.
Yeah,
like,
we already know
okay,
that.
Yeah, but this would have more of an impact if we knew that Draco was supposed to be Harry's rival. And really seeing Draco as Harry's rival, and as the books went on, really seeing him coming to terms with the fact that maybe he doesn't hate Draco as much as he thinks he did, as all of the stuff with Voldemort is starting to unfold, and having to choose a side.
He finds out that their school rivalry pales in comparison to the Dark Lord.
Yeah, exactly, and that would have been more interesting to see, Draco being, like, really nasty to Harry and seeing them really go at it. But then as the bigger spectrum comes into play, Draco being like, oh, wow, I need to focus more on this than I do on this. But he still doesn't. He just joins the Death Eaters right off the bat because, you know, family and everything. And then that's it. And then by the end of all of that, he's like, oh boy, Harry's alive. And then we never see anything from him again. Okay.
Well, and I really think that, you know, Rowling did not know what she was doing with Draco.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think she's admitted that a lot of these characters are based off of people that she hated.
She did, yes, she did say that.
In her life. And
that's why we never see Draco marry Pansy.
Yeah, he married some chick who, from what I can remember, was only introduced in the epilogue. Or maybe may have been slightly mentioned.
Yeah, in one of, like, the books. Or maybe, like, a background character in one of the movies, but...
You know, it's like... And I really feel like she recognized that Draco was a popular character, and she was like... But I think she was incapable as a writer of actually writing a redemption arc. Yeah. Because she was so focused on Harry versus Voldemort, because that was... Everything was about all the time. And Draco, as I said, at some point became more of a side note. I think she was sitting there, like, trying to say, okay, I'm going to do some redemption, but I don't know what I'm doing. So that's why it came off. And even then, he still had a lot of jabs at him in the epilogue. Like, exactly. Oh, well, yeah, he married a nobody, who apparently J.K. Rowling actually craps on his wife, because apparently she was like, oh, well, his parents were so disappointed because she wasn't a Death Eater. And it's like what? And it's like, and she was always a disappointment. Like, wait, so and he was like, oh yeah, also Draco is balding, unlike everyone else. Oh, like, all right, like, is this a relevant detail to discuss?
Yeah, exactly. Like, she went out of her way because she knew Draco was so popular amongst the fans. I mean, look at him. He's the ultimate bad boy type. I mean, that's why I liked him. I'm not going to lie. I mean, he was the bad boy. Like, dude, yeah, people are going to be attracted to that. And so because of that, all of a sudden she was like, oh, people like this character. Okay, well, I'm going to make him good now. Like, okay, but you can't just make him good.
But she still kept treating him
Yeah.
like that schoolyard rival.
Yeah, and then by the end, it was like, oh, Draco's going through all this crap. Draco doesn't really have a happy ending. He marries someone that we never even get to meet because having him marry Pansy was for some reason.
Or even someone who wasn't in Slytherin.
Yeah, like, that's another thing she has a problem with, like, not showing inter-house relationships. Like, we're not allowed to see, like, Hufflepuffs and Gryffindor and Slytherin and Ravenclaw. We never get to see any of them interact with each other. The only exception was Harry and Cho, but even that got
that was
dumped on.
You can actually see that Rowling was writing that, and it sort of started in the Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
It was continuing into Order of Phoenix, and their relationship was developing post Cedric's death.
Yeah.
And then it's like she was like, oh no, and then like got rid of Cho, and then we never hear from her again.
Yeah, we never see her ever again, and then all of a sudden Harry's with Ginny because obviously Harry has to marry someone from Gryffindor.
And he has to marry a Weasley.
Yeah, it has to be a Weasley.
The only Weasley girl.
Yeah, conveniently. And it's just like, you know, we know that the houses get along with each other, but for some reason, she focused more on them being rivals. And it wasn't even that the houses were rivals with each other, it was the houses were rivals with Slytherin. Slytherin alone. Slytherin was the evil house, because it was like, you're evil because Voldemort. Okay.
And Salazar, Salazar Slytherin was also this super evil guy. Like, why would Gryffindor, Slytherin, or Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, or Ravenclaw let him come in and build this super secret evil underground tunnel?
Exactly, like,
it's like,
if Salazar was evil, why would they even decide to make a school with him? That just doesn't make sense. Like, obviously, if they met him, they would be like, oh, this guy's not very nice. He treats muggles like garbage, and he does all of these really questionable things. Huh. Nah, it's fine.
He can found a house and let it build on his own morals. It's like,
but no, Slytherin is always going to be the evil house, and I have such a problem with it because that's just not fair. Slytherin's the evil house, Gryffindor is the good house, and Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw can just screw off. Who cares about them?
Hufflepuff are like a bunch of wimps.
They're idiots.
And then Ravenclaw are a bunch of snobs.
Just like, oh, I'm better than you.
Well, it's like, I remember and one of the characters in the book was like, you know, Hermione, you should really be a Ravenclaw. You're too smart for Gryffindor. And then it's like, is this supposed to be like a dig at them? Because that makes a lot of sense. Hermione really is a Ravenclaw. It's like, because, I mean, sure, she can be brave and stuff, but her defining characteristic is her intelligence.
And honestly, Ron would be a better Hufflepuff because his defining characteristic was loyalty.
Yeah.
He was super loyal to Harry and Hermione, but no, they all had to be in the same house because Gryffindor is the good house, obviously, so they all have to be in the same house. How dare J.K. Rowling write them in separate houses?
To show how far her prejudice goes, I think she took the Pottermore quiz and she came out Hufflepuff, and she was furious. Like, I am a Gryffindor. And it's like, and I think it's funny because, in all honesty, I think I said this before in one of my previous videos, but if I didn't, she is a Slytherin. She's ambitious, she's cunning, she's a two-faced liar, but, she's willing to, trick people, and honestly, her cunning and ambition is what her defining trait is, because how long did it take her to get a publisher for Harry Potter?
Yeah, exactly. It took her a very long time, and she displays very Slytherin characteristics, but no, nobody's allowed to be Slytherin, and if you are someone like me who took the Pottermore quiz and got sorted into Slytherin, all of a sudden you have to deal with a bunch of people telling you that you're in the evil house. I've had, people tell me that I'm in the evil house, and I'm like, Slytherin aren't evil. And they're like, oh yeah, they are. I've watched the movies. And I'm like, okay, but it's so much deeper than that. There were evil people in, Gryffindor.
Yeah, wasn't Wormtail Gryffindor?
Yes, he was. And look at him. He was working for Voldemort. And we already have proof that Slytherin can be good. With Slughorn, I'm not using Snape because he's not a good Slytherin.
Well,
I'm sorry.
And Slughorn does define classic Slytherin traits. He's cunning.
He does.
He's devious.
He's definitely a Slytherin.
He can be kind of manipulative, but he's like a lawful neutral sort of Slytherin.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, he follows all the rules and stuff, but he's going to do things to his own benefit. But you know what? But he never does anything that's antagonistic, because even Dumbledore says, and honestly, he's one of the few teachers who actually wasn't like, the few Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers that wasn't, in some ways evil.
Yeah, exactly.
Or had something really insane go on with them.
Exactly.
He was just, hey, he kind of might have been a prick. He was a little selfish, but he was never evil.
No, he wasn't. He was just definitely, in every way, shape, and form, a Slytherin. Because that's what Slytherin are. They're cunning, ambitious, very good with their words. Very good. They're able, if they have to, they are able to lie themselves out of a situation. That's why I identify as Slytherin. I am very good with my words. I have very high charisma. But, I mean, just to go along with just how looked down on Slytherin are, if you go to Universal, which I have a pass for, and you go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and you look at the house merchandise, they have mugs that has all the house traits. So Hufflepuff, loyalty, Ravenclaw, wisdom, and Gryffindor, bravery. And we all know Slytherin's house trait is they're cunning. But for some reason, on the Slytherin mugs, it says shrewd. Everything that has the house traits, any merchandise, Slytherin is always shrewd. And I'm just like, no. Slytherin are not shrewd. Never in the books is it even said Slytherin are shrewd. Their house trait is that they are cunning.
Cunning,
why
ambition,
do we have to...
deviousness, even.
Why do we have to, change it to make Slytherin sound like a-holes? I don't understand. And then I got it. Oh, because Slytherin are the bad ones. If you're Slytherin, you're obviously a jerk. You can't be a nice Slytherin if you are a part of the Slytherin house. You're automatically a jerk. No ifs, ands, or buts.
And it's like that one line from the first movie when Ron is like, there's nothing but dark wizards that come out of Slytherin, or there's never been a good wizard that came out of Slytherin, or something like that. It's like, okay, but why?
The only actual proof we have of that is Voldemort. That's the only proof. Yeah, he has his Death Eaters, but he really didn't have a lot of them. It was mainly, people that were in the same year.
Well, and it was, if you notice, even, with Snape, and this is one thing I did like, was elaborated on. It was mainly just a bunch of people who formed this cult within Slytherin.
Yeah.
And then they grew up, and then they formed what Voldemort took in to be the Death Eaters.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they recruited some other ones, but you always see the Death Eaters are a fairly small group.
Yeah, like I said, the Death Eaters were all a part of the same year at Hogwarts. If you notice, all the Death Eaters are the same age.
And they all have kids that are pretty much the same age as well.
Exactly, they were part of the same year, but that's the only example we have of evil wizards coming out of Slytherin, and they're all wizards that went to school together. We don't have any other examples. You can argue that Draco is an evil wizard, and yeah, everybody in Slytherin was a jerk, but let's face it, that's because J.K. Rowling wrote them to be that way. And then everybody's like, oh, but in the final battle of Dumbledore's army, the Slytherin didn't join, they fled, they were cowards. And I was like, well, think about it. They had family that were part of the Death Eaters, and then they would have to face that conflict, choose one side or the other. That is taxing on a child. These are children.
And especially when you have even going as far as 11-year-old first years.
Exactly.
Honestly, if I was a prefect, if I was a Slytherin 7th year prefect, I would be like, I'm getting the 12, 13, even 14-year-olds out of here. Hell yeah.
Exactly.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to save people. And it's
exactly.
And it's but even then, it's that was obviously a ploy from Rowling to be like, oh, well, they're just all a bunch of cowards because they're not brave like Gryffindor.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you look at it, and look at the beginning of the book. Draco gets sorted into Slytherin. Every time someone got sorted into Slytherin, everybody would boo them. Imagine being an 11-year-old kid just coming to school, super excited, you're getting sorted into your house, you get sorted into Slytherin, and everyone just boos, and everyone treats you like garbage.
Up until 17-year-olds.
Yeah,
everybody
treating
you like crap.
Yeah, everybody there that's been there longer, everybody that's older than you is booing you because you're a Slytherin. You don't even know what's going on. You don't even know the context. You got sorted into this house. All of a sudden, you feel awful. You're just a kid. You're new. But all of a sudden, because you're a Slytherin, you're evil, and so they feel like they have to live up to this mentality and be like, everybody hates me, so why should I be nice to them? And so all of these Slytherins are jerks, and you kind of start to sympathize with them. I'd be a jerk, too, to all these other houses if they were going to treat me like garbage because of the house that I was in. It's house prejudice, and it's just so sad that we could have had such good relationships between people from certain houses, and yet it was a missed opportunity all for the sake of Gryffindor good, Slytherin evil.
Well, and even the friendship between Cedric and Harry, that was actually really great. He's like, he saw Harry didn't want to be part of the Triwizard Tournament, but he ended up being forced to because of the stupid, plot-convenient, magical contract. He's like, oh, I can still help you out. And he's like,
right.
Because, he's being friendly and he's being loyal to his fellow Hogwarts student.
Like a Hufflepuff would.
And it's like, and that's one of the reasons I actually ended up, in hindsight, I actually really like Cedric's character.
Yes.
Because he really provided Harry a means of showing, hey, you can have a friend who's not Gryffindor. And then, of course, he's killed off. And, his death was alright.
Yeah.
And I did think that as, the first time that a major character was really killed in the series, okay, and that did bring the Voldemort is back, and Harry had something to drive in terms of his angst, and he actually had a legitimate something current.
Yeah, he had a reason to really hate Voldemort, because Voldemort just, killed somebody that he held very dear to him. Someone that went out of his way to be a friend to him was suddenly just killed in front of him. Well, now Harry had a reason to kill Voldemort. And so there is proof that the houses can get along with each other.
And I do think that it may have been a combination of prejudice and a lack of either wanting or a downright ability to write interhouse friendships. I think she was Rowling had this in her mind because she obviously started out the series in very black and white, thing. And obviously there was good, there was bad, and she didn't really mix the colors any bit. And though when she got to the point where you would expect there to be some, and it's like, and even in Chamber of Secrets, Snape was like, Snape was like trying to hurt you. No, Snape was actually trying to help you. And even in Prisoner of Azkaban.
Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
Not Chamber of Secrets. You said Chamber of Secrets.
Philosopher's Stone.
Well, in the first few books, Snape did show that he could do some good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, but she never did anything with that. He remained being awful and awful. And it's like, okay, it's like you're trying to perpetuate this. And then at the last minute, in the last couple books, all of a sudden it's like, well, Snape just had a tragic childhood.
Yeah, all of a sudden Snape was never really evil. And it's like, this is another prime example of a poorly written Slytherin. Like, you wanted Snape to be good in the end. But throughout the entirety of Harry's Hogwarts life, he was awful to him. He abused him. He treated him like garbage because he was so angry about Lily dying and viewed it as Harry's fault, to the point that he even hated Neville because it was also, Neville could have also fulfilled that prophecy.
Yeah.
And so he hated Neville as well, because if it was Neville, Lily would have never died. So he's blaming these children for Lily's death. It's obviously these kids' fault, and treating them like garbage, but no, Snape was nice the entire time, when we already know the only reason he's being nice to Harry is because of Lily, because he never got over his boner for Lily, because friend-zoned again.
And if this is something that was established early in the first few books, that he did have a friendship with Lily, and he does have some hang-ups when it comes to Harry, okay, we can start this and we can develop this over some books and maybe come to begrudgingly accept, just because I do have issues with the death of Lily, I shouldn't take this out on kids, and that would have made me respect Snape, because
exactly.
It shows him overcoming his faults. But J.K. Rowling tries to turn around and act like there were no faults, and even has Harry name his child after Snape, Albus Severus Potter, and it's like,
ugh.
He's like, one of the bravest men I've ever known. No, he was actually a coward.
He really was.
It's like, well, and it's just, I just think J.K. Rowling didn't think anything through. Honestly, I don't even know if she's capable. Because now she's turning around and she's like, I always hated Snape. He was based off of a teacher I hated.
Okay, but why are you basing all of these characters off of people that you hate?
And apparently, there were also... Oh, wait, never mind. I was thinking of another character, but...
But no, Rowling had a bad habit of putting characters in her story and turning around saying, these are based off of actual people I knew that I hated. And I'm like, okay, but there's this alarming amount of those type of people in your book, because that's why Draco didn't get with Pansy. And it's like, if you wanted Draco to have a bad life in the end, why didn't you put him with Pansy? The only reason she didn't is because she hated Pansy. Pansy was based off of a girl that she knew that used to bully her. And because Draco was popular, put her with somebody else, but still gave Draco a bad life in the end. Like, okay, but what was the point of that? And J.K. Rowling, I have to hand it to her. Harry Potter is probably one of the best concepts to come out in our lifetime. I mean, look at it. It's huge.
It blew up.
It's so popular. And the concept is so good. It's a really great concept. It's original. It's, captivating. I mean, I go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal. I go to, like, Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade. I am immersed in Harry Potter. I feel like I'm actually there, and it's so breathtaking, and I mean, we'll get to go there tomorrow and see it, but it's just so beautiful, and you actually feel like you're there, and that's the impact the Harry Potter universe has on people, to the point where people get to go and feel like they're in these books, and it's got such a great atmosphere, but then when you actually go back and you read the books and you watch the movies, you realize, wow, this is a great concept, there's so many things actually wrong with it. It's so depressing. Such a great thing has so many problems. And I mean, I admit, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I love Harry Potter.
I grew up with Harry Potter. I read the books as they came out. I remember when the first book came out, and I was reading it, and it just was blowing up. And every time a book would come out, me and my mom would always get it, and we would read that.
Yeah, exactly. I unfortunately didn't get into it until I was 15, because when I was a kid, I actually wasn't allowed to read it. So I went through, like, elementary school, and everybody's reading Harry Potter, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I got into the books right when Half-Blood Prince was coming out in theaters. I binge-watched those movies and binge-read those books. My mom and I got into it at the same time, and my mom and I became obsessed. She read the book in, like, a day, and then handed it to me, and I read it in a day, and then we'd, like, go back and forth, like, oh my gosh, like, we finished it. Like, it was a month before that we started reading Harry Potter, before the movie came out. Finished it before the movie came out, went to the midnight premiere, left the movie with a lot of criticisms, because the movie left a lot of things out from the book.
Oh gosh,
and
I remember when Half-Blood Prince came out, because I actually, Order of the Phoenix, missed some stuff, but I felt it really kind of captured the spirit of the book.
It did.
And it had some mess ups, but it was good. And I was excited for Half-Blood Prince, because especially after being disappointed by Goblet of Fire, and I reread Half-Blood Prince right before I saw the movie.
I loved that book.
And then I get to the
the big reveal.
I get to the movie, and I'm just like, they focus more on the relationship drama. And
and it was like, when at the end, when Snape reveals himself as the Half-Blood Prince, it was so anticlimactic, because in the book there's so much build-up leading up to that moment. You find out about his mom, you find out about his life. All of this stuff is building up to that moment when Snape is revealed to be the Half-Blood Prince, but we don't get that in the movie. In the movie, it focuses on all of this side stuff, and then all of a sudden Snape is like, I'm the Half-Blood Prince. Okay, but someone who's never read the books and is just coming to see this for the first time, they're missing on a lot of
context.
Missing a lot of the meat of that book, and a lot of the things that made Half-Blood Prince my favorite book. Like, learning about Snape, finding out he was the Half-Blood Prince, reading all of that was like, oh my gosh, this feels like a mystery, because you're finding out all these clues. It's so cool. And then you get to the movie and all of that is left out, and I was like, that's so disappointing, because I was looking forward to seeing my favorite book in movie form, and they just missed all of that.
And then they had the fact that they basically skipped the first Battle of Hogwarts, because it would have been repetitive for the 7th movie.
But really, it wouldn't have. I mean, it would have been...
You're telling me that there wouldn't be a fight breaking out when Dumbledore is killed?
Obviously there would be.
And everyone's just like, I'm going to raise my wand while, everyone runs off.
But no, that's not what happened. Why couldn't there have been a battle? Why couldn't there have been a fight in the end? I'm sorry, but if I were in Hogwarts and Dumbledore just died, you better believe I'm raising hell. So I gotta fight somebody. Someone killed him. I'm gonna start a fight, because...
Well, isn't the whole point of Dumbledore's army?
Exactly.
It's like they named it after Dumbledore. It was a joke, but it was still, relevant of Dumbledore. Dumbledore was still the big good.
Yeah, they were loyal to Dumbledore, so they started Dumbledore's army. So it would have just made sense for them to fight when Dumbledore
was killed,
because they were so loyal to him. Even though I have my criticisms of Dumbledore as well. I mean, there's a lot of criticism.
Well, that mainly came in with the 7th book. And she's like, oh yeah, by the way, did you know that Dumbledore was a former wizard supremacist?
Okay, but why?
And he honestly could have let Harry stay with, like, the Weasleys or Hagrid after he came to Hogwarts.
Like,
but he made him go back to the Dursleys every single summer. It's like...
Thanks, Rowling, for just dumping on all of that.
It's like, man, I really liked Dumbledore for so long.
And then all of a sudden you have, like, this awful reason to hate him because J.K. Rowling came out with all this BS about Dumbledore just to make him seem like an awful person. It's like, what is he supposed to do? Make Dumbledore look like a good person in the books? Because did you write any development on him? No, you're just saying this is what he used to be. Okay, that's not how he is in the books. How did he get to that point? Oh, you're not gonna tell us.
Oh, you mean that was like 60 years ago? Oh, yeah, no big deal.
I mean, I still would like to know what made him change and not be like that anymore. Oh, okay.
That would have been more... But again, this is something like we talked about with Snape, is that he... is like we're getting introduced to all this stuff too late.
Exactly.
You have these characters who have little to no backstory, or with Snape it was vague clues dropped in. Oh, he was a Death Eater, and then you're introducing all this stuff in the 6th and 7th book, and it's like you now decide to come up with this intricate plot.
Yeah, it's just like they missed so much stuff. Like there's like so many questions that came out of those books and movies. Like why was Albus that way? Why didn't Draco, why was Draco suddenly feeling pressure to join the Death Eaters? Like, he really never really displayed...
We never saw any reluctance from him on being a douchebag.
Yeah,
and then
so why is he suddenly reluctant to be a Death Eater? Like, we know that he's not a nice person, so why would joining the Death Eaters be such a problem for him? He would be able to kill Harry if he was actually Harry's rival. Wouldn't that be a good thing for him? That only makes sense. But no, suddenly he's like, I don't want to be a Death Eater. Okay.
Well, it's like, and like we said, J.K. Rowling's just it was incapable of actually developing him because he was a Slytherin. And,
yes.
And honestly, a lot of the problems in Harry Potter can be traced back to her prejudices against Slytherin and basically her black and white view of things.
Exactly.
That, and it's like, okay, honestly, I actually would have loved to see us have more former Death Eaters. Because honestly, Snape being a former Death Eater is an interesting plotline dropped through a few of the books. I think it really started with Goblet of Fire, wasn't it? When the Russian guy confronted him about being a former Death Eater, and we had Barty Crouch's...
Oh, yeah. I think so, yeah.
That was the first time we actually had them say, oh, yeah, he was a former Death Eater, and then we had clues in, like, Prisoner of Azkaban, and like, okay, we're dropping all this, but it's like, Rowling, you need to understand when you're writing a story, especially with something that you know how many books you're going to do. It was stated from the beginning, there will be 7 books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know how long this is going to be, so you should know, okay, I should start some plot lines here, so that by the time I get to the book 7, I should just be able to wrap up everything instead of constantly introducing all these things. But she didn't care about Slytherin or anything. And she even though she cared about Gryffindor, we didn't get any development on Gryffindor.
We really didn't. And honestly, when you actually go back and you look at Gryffindor, I have this habit of doing it too. I look at Gryffindor and I'm like, I don't like Gryffindor. It's because they come off as so pretentious. Because if you actually talk to somebody in like real life who took the Pottermore quiz and they got sorted into Gryffindor and they are a Gryffindor, they tend to be really snobby, and they're like, I'm a Gryffindor, I'm in the good house. And I had this happen to me when I went to ride the ride at Hogwarts at Universal, because it has like these tubes that actually shows in real time who's winning, like the Hogwarts house on Pottermore. Obviously it's always Gryffindor for some reason, and we go through and we're looking at it, and like the Hogwarts is it's always like Gryffindor's always like right here, and then Slytherin's like just below it, and then obviously Hufflepuff's like at the very bottom. And I was with my friend who's a Gryffindor, and he's just like, yeah, see, Gryffindor, we're obviously the best. You haven't won a house cup since like book blah blah blah.
Since book 1.
Yeah, since book 1. And I'm just looking at him like, the only reason you're winning is because you have Harry in your house. Boom.
Well, and one of the things that really annoyed me is once I went back and looked at the series again, they said, oh yeah, Slytherin had always been winning the house cup. Okay. Winning the House Cup, I mean, Snape obviously had favoritism towards them.
Yeah.
But one teacher isn't going to win you the House Cup.
No.
McGonagall, Flitwick, I don't remember all the other teachers, but all of them have to be giving you points for you to win.
Exactly.
So that means Slytherin had been doing well with everyone up until Dumbledore is like, I award Harry 10 million points to Gryffindor. And it's like, okay, now... all right, now everyone wins. It's like, and
Yeah.
because it's set up for you to cheer against Slytherin, like, yeah, those douchebags.
Yeah, exactly. And there's obvious favoritism toward Gryffindor throughout the entirety of the series. And it's just, it doesn't work that way. You have so many teachers that need to award you points. And for someone as unbiased as Professor McGonagall, I don't believe that one bit. McGonagall was not one to sit there and cheer for one house over the other.
Didn't she duck like 150 points from Harry, Ron, and Hermione?
Oh, yeah,
It's
each.
It's like, you guys screwed up. I'm going, and I may be your house teacher, but I'm not going to let this slide.
Exactly, because, you know, she knew if you didn't earn it, you didn't get it. If someone earned it, they got it. She was unbiased. Even though she was Gryffindor, she was unbiased. And I'm sorry, McGonagall, always going to be the best teacher. Always going to be the best teacher. McGonagall, she rules.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only one of the few things that the latter books did right was have her become headmistress.
Yes, oh my goodness. When I read the last book and it said that McGonagall became the headmistress, I was like, oh, yes, please. That means that the future of Hogwarts is in good hands. But it's just so upsetting when you look at all the potential that the series had. And it's even more upsetting when you see how big the series is. I mean, I guess, like, I know I talk about Universal a lot, but I guess it's the best example. You go there, and when you go to Universal to Diagon Alley especially blew my mind. I mean, you look at that, and you can really see all of the love people have for the series, to the point that, hey, making this entire area dedicated to Harry Potter, that's not just, okay, this is just Harry a couple Harry Potter things. This is the actual area from the book, because it even has like the ice cream shop that's only mentioned in the book. It's not in the movies, and it's so immersive. Like, you can really feel the love for the series, and it's so upsetting because so many people love the series, but there's so much stuff lacking from it. It's a great series with a huge impact, but there's so much that's severely lacking.
And I do think a lot of people... You know, there are people who basically don't take any critical view and just saying, oh, it's great. And then there's some people who I think fell in love with the idea of Harry Potter. And I know as a kid, when I'm like 10 years old...
You really don't have a concept of, you know, plot, criticism,
Yeah, I'm reading Harry Potter, and it's Harry Potter. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's something new. Fresh and new, and you're just like, ooh, magic, wizards, witches.
Yeah,
ooh, this is so cool.
And then as a kid, you get invested.
Yeah.
And then you grow up, and then you
grow up, and you remember it like that from when you were a kid. You remember it being this great story.
I went as Harry Potter for Halloween when I was in like 4th grade.
Yeah, I went as a Muggle to the premiere of Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, I think I went to as a Muggle.
But I mean, it's just, you get this in your mind. You loved it so much. I mean, even when I was 15 and I was reading it, when I was 15, I had no concept of plot and characters and development. I was just like, oh, this is so cool. This is like, there's these houses and there's Hogwarts and it's so cool and there's all these characters, and I was so fascinated in magic, wizards. And then I grew up and then I reread them and I was like, wait a minute, hold the phone. Something's not right here. And I started going through and I'm like, I don't remember it being this way. This is actually kind of bad.
Yeah.
And I ended up being really disappointed because I was like, I remember this being so good, but after rereading the books and rewatching the movies, I'm noticing so many things wrong with it. Not to say that I wouldn't go back and rewatch these things because I love Harry Potter.
Honestly, it's like it was such a big part of a lot of our lives
that it's kind of hard
years.
to give up because it had such a huge impact on us and kind of in a way shaped who we are today. And if anything, I thank Harry Potter for making me critical of things and not making me take things as they are and being more, you know, when you're first introduced to something, you're obviously, especially if it's something fresh and new, you're just focusing on the fact that this is fresh and new and less on the fact that there's things wrong with it. And then when you go back and watch it again, you're like, oh.
Well, and a lot of times, you know, the initial investment is very strong. Especially when you're going through a series and you want to see how it plays out. It's like, you know, when you're watching Legend of Korra, like book 1, it's like you're excited. Okay, there's some things. No, they're going to deal with this. They're going to fix it.
Yeah,
by the time you get to the finale, you're just like, oh. And that was kind of the same way with Harry Potter, because I remember when when I finished the Deathly Hallows, I kind of sat back and, I was like maybe, 17 at the time? I don't remember when the book...
Deathly Hallows, when the book came out?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I don't remember. I know I was still a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, I was a teenager too, but I remember when I read it, I was like, I mean, this kind of cleared a lot of stuff up, and it answered problems, and it concluded the plot. But I had so many conflicting feelings because there was a lot of stupid stuff, and it killed all of my favorite characters. It literally, it's like Rowling systematically killed off every popular character that wasn't Harry, Ron, and Hermione.
And it was just like, was killing Hedwig really necessary? Was killing Dobby really necessary?
Was killing Fred.
Yeah, was killing Fred. I'm still upset about Fred. I am never gonna be happy.
Lupin and Tonks were both killed off screen.
And it's just, why? Why was all of this necessary?
Yeah, their son gets to live as an orphan. Isn't that great?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the only good things happened to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Everybody else could screw off because they're the only ones that matter. They were the only ones in the series that ever mattered. And it's like, but what happened to everybody else? Why did you have to kill Hedwig, Harry's companion since he first went to Hogwarts other than Hagrid? Why did you have to kill Dobby, who was loyal to Harry, Ron, and Hermione, since they freed him and made him not a slave anymore? Why did they have to kill Lupin and Tonks, who have been there for Harry whenever he needed them because they were such good friends with his father? Why did they have to kill Fred, who was a lovable character from the beginning because they were the fun, silly twins? Everybody loved them.
And he was the only Weasley who got even scratched by the end of the series.
Exactly.
And it's like, and then you have to kill them all?
Exactly. It doesn't make sense to kill these characters just to make these three characters have a good ending. It's like they had such plot armor on them. Like, nothing bad can ever happen to these characters except, Hermione's parents are never going to remember her again.
Oh, yeah. And it's one thing that really pissed me off, especially, it started with Goblet of Fire, but it wasn't, as bad, but it got worse as the series went on. It got so dark and gloomy and grim. By the end of it, it's just like, I feel so depressed and empty by the end of the book. Like, all my favorite characters are dead. The characters that I didn't like got together, and it's like...
Yeah, exactly, and it's like my favorite character, Draco, he didn't even have a good ending. Like, he married someone that we don't even know, has a bad life, his parents basically are like, oh, we don't approve of her, so, screw you, we don't want anything to do with you. And I love Tonks. I loved Tonks the moment she was introduced. She was, my favorite female character, other than Luna, and then she dies, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm just like, okay.
I guess.
And didn't Luna marry some just unnamed nobody?
I don't really remember what they said about Luna.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so many things happen.
Luna Lovegood.
And
Damn, just type it out.
I know you want to use the voice thingy, but it's not always going to be accurate.
Yeah, because you keep talking. All right, yeah.
I'm sorry, this is a video where I gotta voice my opinion, so I have to talk. Awkward silence while Tim looks up Luna Lovegood.
It happens.
But yeah, it's like, and I do think that she had such a black and white view of it that by the time as long as Harry, Ron, and Hermione were fine. It doesn't matter who else dies.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what happens to anybody else. It's just Harry, Ron, and Hermione. The only thing that I liked that happened at the end of it was Neville squared up.
Yeah,
squared
I think
up.
that's one thing that everyone unanimously loved.
I cheered so much when Neville was just like, you know what, I'm done being afraid. Takes the sword, kills Nagini, whoa. Whoa.
You did more than Harry did in 7 books.
Where did that come from? I want that. And then you find out afterwards that he's actually, jacked, and you're just like, oh, okay. I'll accept.
And I did like that. I think they did say that Neville became the herbology teacher.
Yeah, he did get it. He did
because
get a
that was always been in the books. He always had a stronger interest in that.
Yeah.
And it's okay, I really like that he became that teacher.
I think one thing that I'm also still really disappointed in is that Neville obviously did not belong in Gryffindor. Very obviously, everybody knew he did not belong in Gryffindor. He shouldn't have even been sorted into Gryffindor. The only reason he was there was because at the end, he had to be there with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, so he had to be a Gryffindor. Even though Neville should have been a Hufflepuff.
Really?
He needed to be a Hufflepuff. That's where he belonged. And even canonically, he asked to be in Hufflepuff instead of Gryffindor because he knew how much pressure was going to be on him to be this brave Gryffindor. He knew that's not who he was. But they didn't give it to him. Why? Because J.K. Rowling wants everybody, every good character, every likable character to be a Gryffindor, because who cares about the other houses, am I right?
Oh.
Only Luna Lovegood got to be in Ravenclaw, but that's because she was wacky.
All the students will look up and say, "Don't put me in Gryffindor." And then J.K. Rowling will look down and say, "No."
And it's just like, and even Harry, like, Harry was like this close to being put in Slytherin. He would have belonged there. He would have belonged in just about any
Isn't
house.
it funny how when Harry asked to be not put in a certain house, the sorting house obliges him. When
Anyone else?
Neville asks to not be put in a different house, the thing does not listen instead. But
Exactly.
Harry it does.
Yeah, it works for Harry, but it doesn't work for anybody else. Why? Because Harry's the chosen one. Okay, but Neville also could have been the chosen one. It didn't just apply to Harry. It's just that Harry got to it first. It could have applied to Neville. Neville would have got it done in 4 books.
Yeah. Okay, apparently Luna Lovegood married a guy who literally was never mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
It was only referenced in J.K. Rowling, A Year in the Life, mentioned only, and then on Pottermore, mentioned only. So yeah, so she married some guy that we had never heard about in the books.
I'm still all aboard that Neville Luna train. Choo choo.
No, oh yeah, it's like, yeah, he was like apparently some like grandson of some other character.
Okay.
Yeah, and that about shows you her her pairing abilities. I really can't think of any actual in-game pairing in Harry Potter that I like. In-game pairing that
In-game.
End game.
Endgame. Okay, I thought you were saying in-game. Like, have you been playing too many video games?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, any in-game pairing that I actually
I
like.
liked Percy and what's her face? Wasn't it Percy? Or was it the other brother?
No, it was it Charlie?
Or Charlie.
Charlie and the French girl.
Because you hooked up with that cute French girl from that one school.
Fleur de Cour.
Fleur, yes.
Yeah, that was actually cute.
It was Charlie or Bill. I don't remember which one.
It was Charlie or Bill. I couldn't remember which.
It was one of the
Weasley,
two eldest Weasleys.
Yeah, one of the two.
But
yeah.
I remember when I read that, and I'm like, that's actually cute because
it's like,
the Draco always harshes on the Weasley family, and then it's like one of the Weasley ends up marrying one of the prettiest like witches.
Literally described as one of the most beautiful women in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Weasley's like, take that, Malfoys.
It was probably Bill because he was played by Hux.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's like. But I mean, like a lot of the stuff that was like thrown in like the last couple books was like, it was just like. It felt so much like, oh, gotta get characters together.
Oh well, what do we put together? Rolls dice. Done.
Lupin and Tonks.
Done. Even though that was actually a really cute ship, she actually did a good job with that.
Yeah.
It was just random, but
It was definitely random. It's like, who expected Lupin and Tonks to get together? Nobody. But then it ended up being really cute.
Yeah.
And then they died.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh yeah, and then
which
there's
is even more frustrating because the series was killed off. So then it was like the only person Harry had left that was tied to his dad and mom was Lupin.
Yeah.
it's like, and Sirius was dead, Lupin is dead.
Even Peter Pettigrew.
Even like he had like, I was so glad when he finally like he was helping them out, and then like, oops, my magic hand is now killing me and now I'm dead. And it's like, okay, so now he literally has no one who is like a real good friend of his dad.
Yeah, he has no connection to his family anymore. And it's like, okay, but why did Harry have to have such a depressing ending? Like, why couldn't Sirius
he has to be married into the Weasleys, even though he was part of the Weasleys. He didn't need to.
Yeah, he didn't need to marry into them. He did not need to marry into the Weasleys. They already viewed him as family. During Christmas, where did he go? The Weasley house.
And even
before,
even
like in book 1, they hadn't met Harry yet. What does all of a sudden Ron say? Look, my mom made you a sweater too. They already like before.
It's like, and it's like you don't need to actually go out of your way to systematically destroy any connection that Harry has to anyone besides the Weasleys. He was already part of the Weasleys.
He was adored by the Weasley family. So having him marry into it to make it official, it wasn't necessary. It was already official. So putting Harry with someone that would have made more sense.
Honestly,
would have been better.
Like if he did get with Cho, he eventually married Cho. Cho would have been welcome into the Weasley family as well.
Because that's just how the Weasleys are. They
love having so many. They have a family of 500 million kids.
Yeah, they have an entire school's worth of kids.
Yeah, it's like what other a few more people in.
Yeah, they
Why
love
not having a brunette in our family?
Yeah,
We're so
why
used
not?
to the gingers. Why not adopt something different?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Weasleys already loved Harry and viewed him as their own son. That having him marry Ginny was pointless. And Harry could have gotten with Cho and they would have had such a much better relationship than shoehorned Harry Ginny.
Yeah.
I shipped Harry and Luna, but I'm not gonna lie, I think Luna and Neville would have been cute too.
I was always like a huge Luna Neville shipper. I don't know why, but I'm just like, I looked at it and I was like, Luna's awkward in a quirky way, Neville's awkward in a anxiety way. Done.
I think it was because I realized I'm not gonna get my Luna Harry, then I'm like, fine, I'll be okay with Luna Neville, and that still didn't happen.
And it still didn't happen.
And I'm like,
It was
you
just
know
like,
what?
all
Forget
right.
you.
You know what? I'm just gonna go over here and I'm gonna ship my Harry Potter ships and ignore all of this.
Yeah.
I'll be over here.
Yeah.
I legitimately thought Luna was gonna be like Harry's girl because she was introduced in book 5 and the thing the
Yeah, and they had such a good character development together.
I mean, then they were talking about how they can only see things together, and it was because of and then it talks about the reason we can see things is because of we witnessed the death of our parents.
Yeah.
And she's really weird, but she kind of understands Harry in
And at the very least, a good friendship. It's we could have had a really good inter-house friendship between them, at the very least.
Yeah, but even then,
but I
Luna
thought
still had to be Gryffindor.
Yes,
I love Gryffindor.
And she cheered against Ravenclaw in the Quidditch matches, and it's okay,
why?
What's the point of having her be like that? It would have been.
Why not just make her Gryffindor while you're at it, J.K.
Exactly.
Rowling?
If you're gonna have her support Gryffindor so hard that she's gonna ignore Ravenclaw, why did you put her in Ravenclaw to begin with? Oh, to write a poorly done inter-house relationship. Got it. Figured it out.
Yeah, because you can tell that at least she put effort into giving attention to the Gryffindors, and it's and that's all you can. That's all you can really say. She gave them attention. She gave them, focus in the books. But, she didn't give anyone else really the focus. So any attempt at development comes off as half-hearted or random because she had never built anything up. It's and it's so sad when you really think about how it could have done and how we really could have had a really cool. We could have had cool Slytherins, we could have had cool Hufflepuffs, we could have had cool, Ravenclaws, and without having to basically try to sabotage stuff simply because they're not Gryffindors.
What I think would have been cool is if Draco and Harry actually ended up becoming friends.
That would have been, it would have been great, because we've seen this in so many other stuff, Vegeta and Goku in, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
It's wouldn't it be great if Malfoy became
the foil rival.
Yeah, the Vegeta. It's sure
right.
they'd bicker, they'd probably get into some fights, but when push came to shove, they'd still team up against whatever was going on.
Honestly, I think that would have been really cool. It's you see Draco. I think this would have been better than having Snape turn out to be, the good guy all along in the end. Do it with Draco. Have Draco be his foil rival, but then in the end be no, I'm not doing this, I'm standing by Harry, and have this good friendship develop from that, have them become best friends in the end. That would have been so good. Instead we get just this ambiguous ending for Draco, he did kind of the good thing, but he's still kind of evil, but okay.
Yeah, there's Draco over there. He's not 100% of a dick, but
Not as much of a dick as you could have been.
But you still get a crappy life anyway.
With a random chick and who your parents don't approve of.
Yeah,
Because apparently his parents are still wizarding supremacists after all this went down.
Even though they know they
I
lost.
can see that with Lucius, but not the mother.
No, it didn't make sense for Narcissa.
Wasn't she against all this getting Draco involved in?
She was. She didn't want that to happen. It was all Lucius. But
and even
for some reason
she begged
and
that to protect Draco.
And
she did.
It was Lucius was mainly because he knew that Voldemort didn't have much favor with him because he did run and hide. He's like, after Voldemort's gone, he has no reason to try to do that. Even if he's a self-serving douchebag, he dropped the Death Eater thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, but none of this really made any sense because obviously she didn't care about the Slytherins enough to really put any thought into him.
Yeah, exactly. It just goes to show how little Rowling really cared for a lot of the characters she put in her series, because you just really see how little they really got. Like, you have these characters and you immediately you know how you watch something and in like the first 5 minutes you can already tell which character is going to be your favorite. Everybody had their favorite character in Harry Potter. Everybody, as soon as you watched Harry Potter or read the first Harry Potter book, you knew. You could pinpoint, you like zeroed in on your favorite character. You're like, yep, that's the one. That is the one, unless it was a character that came in later. But until that character came in, you had a favorite character before that, and then all of a sudden you were like, oh, it's this character instead. But everybody has their favorite character. And anybody whose favorite character wasn't Harry, Ron, or Hermione, and who wouldn't have them as their favorite characters unless you're like really vanilla, like only bad things happen to your favorite character. So everybody feel like they just got dumped on. I mean, I know I did.
Well, my favorite characters were definitely Lupin and Sirius.
Yes, they were great characters.
And honestly, I don't.
Fred and George.
Well, yeah, and one thing I don't understand is, you have Lupin and Sirius. These were James's best friends. They were loyal to him till his death.
Yes.
And
and Sirius was like ready when he got out of Azkaban.
I will be. He's like he wanted to take care of Harry.
He was ready. He was like, I will take care of you. I'm your godfather. He made me your godfather when he died. I'm your godfather. I'm going to be taking care of you from now on. He was ready. And then he dies.
Yeah, and it's like, and even Lupin, it's like, okay, you also have another guy who is good friends, who wouldn't have, who wouldn't have raised Harry, but he certainly would have been supportive and caring towards Harry, but then it's like, oh yeah, he'll come in occasionally.
Yeah.
It's like, I liked that, Sirius and Harry were having those, pen pal things, talking to each other, because, they were in communication. I love that. It's like, okay, why couldn't we also get this with Lupin? Why couldn't he have them be his cool uncles?
Yeah, why couldn't he have, like, this relationship with both of them? But no, it's because Harry had to be, like, this tragic character that everybody associated with, everybody that he loves dies. I think that says something about Harry. Stay as far away from Harry Potter as possible, because if you had any kind
You'll get pregnant and die.
No, that's not true. Jenny's still alive.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
unless you're
tragically.
Unless you're protected by the ginger hair of
not being Fred.
Or Hermione.
Unless you're Fred. Screw Fred. Don't screw Fred. Please bring him back.
Yeah, it's like, and like apparently he goes into the afterlife to see Dumbledore, but no one else that has ever died is there. Because, Dumbledore's just like, hey Harry, remember how I pretty much put you in constantly dangerous situations? Yeah, good times.
Good times, good times. Okay.
Now go kill Voldemort.
Now go kill Voldemort. Okay, now leave.
Hey, can I see my parents or Sirius or get the hell out of the afterlife?
Can I see my family? You what? My family?
You got to see him in the mirror of Erizad. Get out of here.
You can have these pictures. But I want to see my family. You're what? My family. You're what? My family.
You mean the Weasleys?
No!
Wakes up.
Why? Just poor Harry. He cannot catch a break. Like, poor Harry cannot have any good things. He can't have any good things.
And he simultaneously stand by J.K. Rowling and pissed on so much. It's like, how?
And it's like, he's one of those characters that, if you like Harry Potter, if you say your favorite is Harry Potter, I mean, it's not wrong to say your favorite is Harry, but if you say that he's your favorite, you just kind of feel like, ugh. It's just, it doesn't feel right. You're like, that's so vanilla. He should be my favorite. I should be rooting for him.
He should be the most developed and complex character in the
But he's not.
entire...
So if you say that he's your favorite, you're just kind of like...
it sounds like that's just because he's the main character.
Yeah, you feel like everybody thinks, oh, you just like him because he's your favorite, and it's just kind of like.
Well, what about Ron and Hermione? It's like even they, honestly, like, and they did crappy stuff, but oops, they're Gryffindors. Like when Hermione charmed the document for the Dumbledore's army, and if they said anything, they would be permanently marked. Like Cho's friend had snitch written on her face.
Yeah.
And that was permanent. There's no way she was able to get that off.
Yeah.
And Hermione's like, and I understood Cho's anger at that.
Exactly.
And
it made sense.
And it's like, okay, we didn't have any reflection from Hermione. It's always, wow, Cho. Wow, what a brat. Like, really.
Yeah, and it was like, it needed to be a secret. But I think the problem is that, these are kids.
They're a lot of them were like 15.
They were kids, and Hermione put the spell on it. It's like, if you tell anybody, it's gonna have snitch written on your face. Okay, but think about it.
But they did.
These kids, if they did snitch, they could be being threatened. Their life could be in danger.
Honestly,
their families' lives could be in danger.
And we're dealing with Umbridge here. Like,
yes.
It was very likely that Cho's friend was threatened by having her family, like, evicted by the Ministry of Magic or something.
Exactly. But Hermione did not take any of that into consideration.
And she didn't tell anyone at all. This is all hush-hush. They thought they were just signing some...
And then all of a sudden this happened, and yes, Cho had every reason to be angry. I mean, how could you not
Harry should have been angry at Hermione. Like, but why? No,
he wasn't.
No, it's like, and this is Hermione's totally okay, simply because she's one of the main characters and she's a Gryffindor.
Obviously, so she's perfect. And these Ravenclaws, since they're not Gryffindor, can't have anything good happen to them. And Harry has to be like, Cho, go away. I don't love you anymore.
Well, and it was like they never, and it just ended. Like, I remember the last thing I really remember in their relationship was when they kissed in the secret room. The room of requirement.
Right.
And then after that, Harry was just like, hell yeah, first kiss. And then it was just like, and then Cho ran off. And then we never hear from Cho again. She stopped being mentioned.
Yeah.
And she was only like, what, a year older than Harry? So she still had at that time like at least a year and a half in Hogwarts.
Yeah, a year and a half of Hogwarts.
And in like 6th book, I think they may have mentioned like, oh well, and Harry never spoke to Cho ever again.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
You're just going to drop like 2 books worth of development,
just to
get him with Ginny.
Yeah, and it just shows just how much was actually put into Harry Potter when you go back and you look at it and you realize this series that you grew to love actually has a lot of things wrong with it.
And there was
it's upsetting.
Yeah, and there was no real thought or planning into any of this.
Yeah.
And, like, there was no real... And, like, the whole stuff with the Horcruxes, like, I think that was a complete accident. And J.K. Rowling got lucky with her early book plots, like Tom Riddle's diary and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, because the Horcruxes, it's a neat idea. I like that idea.
I really did like that.
But it's like... But this came in the 6th book, the second to last book in the series. And we're just now... Oh, yeah, by the way, here's plot.
Yeah, and it's like, you only have... 1 more book, and you gotta wrap this up in that book. But all you do when you bring this in that late is you rush through the end. And that's what happened with Deathly Hallows. Deathly Hallows was completely rushed through. And
so much of it felt so random. I mean, I know from my friends have always called it Harry Potter and the Extended Camping Trip.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And it's just, reading Deathly Hallows, so much happens in that book, and it just feels like too much happens in that book. And it really needed to be spread out over a few books. Honestly, I think she should have taken the time to write a few more books and just spread it out a little bit more, because it just felt too condensed.
Well, and it was always going to be 7 books because there are 7 years in Hogwarts.
Yeah.
But in the Deathly Hallows, they never even... I don't even think they
dropped out, didn't they?
I believe so. They did drop out.
They didn't even return because they were attacked at the wedding, and then they basically just were on the run from there on.
Yeah.
So at that point, this doesn't even matter how many years there are in Hogwarts. You might as well make an 8th or 9th book.
Yeah.
So that you can...
At least 2 more. Because they never went back to Hogwarts, so it really doesn't make sense to end it at 7 because that's the last year. They never go back. there's no reason for it to end at 7, especially when you make Deathly Hallows a 2-part movie.
Yeah, really.
And there was a reason why it needed to be 2 parts. Look at how much content is in that book. You want to get all the content that's in that book, you gotta make 2 movies.
And even then, they still had to leave out a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
Because there was nothing but, like, spouting exposition upon exposition on this. It's groundbreaking exposition. This is stuff that's, like, to understand what's going on, you need to know all of this. Even if it's contradictory or random, you need to know this to know what's going on.
Exactly.
And it's
exactly.
And it was overwhelming, and I think that's one of the reasons why I had such mixed feelings for so long before I decided, okay, I really don't like Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, they left so much out, and they left so much out in the movie, added too much in the book, and it's just like, I feel like a lot of it wasn't planned. A lot of what happened in Harry Potter really wasn't planned. Ended up being an accident. Hey, let's add this into the book. Okay, but we're almost done with this series. Yeah, let's add it into the book anyway. We're almost,
Well, and it's like this is the way when you're, alright, when you're doing a series, you have to take one or two approaches. You either start it out as fairly self-contained stories that all, connect, which is what the first, I would say, 5 books were.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It was like the first 5 books were mostly self-contained stories that were connecting and, some stuff was happening. And then in the 6th and 7th book, it's like a whole bunch of stuff. You either have this all be self-contained where the Half-Blood Prince and the Deathly Hallows, are just mostly self-contained that are just continuing some things. Or you have this plot built up from the beginning or near the beginning. Okay, yeah. The Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, alright. But when you get to the 3rd book in a 7-book series, you're nearing the halfway point. You need to start developing your plot. And she was kind of doing that, but not enough. It's like, okay, Voldemort came back, but that didn't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
And
it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, here he is. Okay, cool.
And the Ministry's like, oh, well, yeah, that didn't happen.
Okay.
Okay, you're actually like, you're ignoring the fact that this guy who went on a genocidal rampage almost 20 years ago is back, and you're just like, oh no, we want to ignore this because they would all be freaking out and getting all of the Aurors together. And they wouldn't need the Order of the Phoenix shouldn't be the only thing. I think it may have been, oh well, Order of the Phoenix are the good guys and they're the only ones who had to fight against it. It's like, wouldn't it be great if Harry had help from like some members of the Ministry in escaping and stuff, and and then there may have been like a civil war within the Ministry between people who were against Voldemort and some people who may have been like sympathetic to Voldemort.
Yeah.
It's like, but then again, all these interesting plots that J.K. Rowling never did because she never developed it because she was so focused on, I have Harry Potter. I'm Harry Potter. Harry Potter. That was...
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's why characters such as Draco and the entirety of the Slytherin house are so underdeveloped. They were not the focus. They were not the main characters. Therefore, they didn't get development. Only Harry and his main peeps, his main squad, his gang,
Even Neville got development.
Yeah. And Neville was a character...
Neville was a butt monkey for so many books.
He was, but then he ended up being, he got so much development. But anybody who was in Slytherin, Draco, and all of that, unless you were Severus Snape, he got development, didn't get anything. Like, Draco, nothing. He was still a punk by the end. He was still a jerk by the end. He was just slightly nicer than he could have been. But we still don't see any development from him. We didn't get to see any of his internal struggles. We didn't get to see any of the conflict that he had to go through of not wanting to be a part of the
Death Eaters.
Death Eaters, yeah. For some reason I wanted to say Death Watch. That's not right.
This isn't Star Wars.
Oh, if only it was. He didn't want to be part of the Death Eaters. We never got to see any of that conflict of him being like expected to join but not wanting to join and having to see that inner struggle. And wouldn't it have been cool to see Draco join the Death Eaters because he was expected to do so, but have him turn into like a double agent and be like, I don't want to do this, I know this is wrong, but I'm going to stay with them because to keep them off my back, but I'm also going to try to help these people.
Well, what would have been great, though, is if we had seen in, like, maybe the second or third book, we did see that Draco wasn't... Oh, you know what would have been great, though, is when Harry and Ron turned into Crabbe and Goyle, and they met Draco in the common room, in the Slytherin common room. What if they found out that Draco really was... Maybe he was just super pressured by his dad, and the reason he's... Like, what if we actually found out that he didn't really want to be, like, the super evil Slytherin?
Yeah,
but
like, what if he was acting that way because he had, like, this appearance to maintain because of his family? And that could have made Harry and Ron change their tune, realize Draco's not actually a jerk, he's just
it's like
pressured to be that way.
There's a prime opportunity in Chamber of Secrets, and then, you know...
No, he's
he's
like
just
that.
a complete prick.
He's always like that, like, oh, okay.
It's like, and yeah, you miss this point. It's like, you know, you make a character like that, and, you know, I'm sure, you know, I understand if J.K. Rowling went a couple books not realizing, oh, well, he's really popular. But, you know, and then just put in some stuff and start building some sympathies for him. But you don't wait until the 6th book to really show. Because even in the 5th book, wasn't he pandering to Umbridge?
Oh, yeah. He was really sucking up to her.
Yeah, and it's like, honestly, but wouldn't Draco still be... Because Draco's still a guy who wants to do what he wants. And, you know... He wouldn't be pandering to Umbridge so much. Wouldn't it be great if he actually helped them? What if he helped with the Room of Requirement? And they were like, "But you're Draco," and he's like, "Okay, I think I can keep a secret sometimes."
Yeah, exactly. That would have been like a prime opportunity to show that, hey, Draco's not actually this big bad guy that we thought he was. He wasn't like the school villain. He just, you know, felt like he had to act that way. And legitimately wanted to help.
Yeah.
That would have been a great opportunity to give him some real development. So by the end of the series, we could really see him grow as a character and really see, like, that development with him and have him grow to be one of Harry's best friends.
Yeah. Have him be part of the main group.
Exactly.
It's like we don't... Just because Harry, Ron, and Hermione have been friends since book 1, just as a trio, that doesn't mean you can't bring more people into this group.
Exactly.
I mean, they did. They brought in Neville. They brought in Luna.
Yeah, but even then, they were kind of... they were a little on the side.
Why not do that more? Like,
yeah, why not
That's
add...
true.
Like, you know, you did show that you could add more people to their friend group. Why not add more people like Draco? Oh, because
Draco,
he's Slytherin.
You know, Draco, Cho, you know, Hufflepuff.
Yeah, a Hufflepuff character. We really didn't get that much Hufflepuff representation outside of Cedric Diggory.
He could have been a part of that too.
Yeah, if Cedric didn't die, he could have been a part of the group. But no. And like, other than Cedric, like, how much Hufflepuff representation did you actually
I
get?
honestly...
Other than Tonks as well. Tonks was also a Hufflepuff.
It's like...
other than Tonks and Cedric,
but honestly,
I can't think of a single important Hufflepuff character.
Yeah, I can't think of any other ones because they got no love at all.
Yeah.
It's like, Ravenclaws, at least they said, oh yeah, they're smart. They may be a bunch of snobs, but they're smart. And Hufflepuffs, it's just like...
Hufflepuff's the stupid house.
Well, we live by the kitchen.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was really... I think that was the only thing I can really remember them saying. And I think it was like the 3rd book. And it was like when they go to the elf kitchen, and it's just like, oh yeah,
yeah, they portrayed them as like really fat and stupid, and it was like, but that's not their thing. That's why I am somewhat excited, a little bit excited for the new Harry Potter movie. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, because the main character is a Hufflepuff. Yep, he's a Hufflepuff. So
and an American, I think, isn't it?
I think it does take place in New York.
Like the 1920s or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm skeptical because of how I feel.
Because J.K. Rowling is writing it.
So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm like, it takes place in the 1920s New York. The main character is a Hufflepuff. You're meeting all of my standards, but how is it gonna be? So I'm like, I'm gonna go see it when it comes out in theaters, obviously, because that's just how much of a nerd I am. Unfortunately, I'm a masochist when it comes to stuff like this. So I'm gonna go see it, but I'm definitely gonna go there with
Lowered expectation.
With this, not with a high expectation that this movie is going to blow my mind. I'm going to go in there expecting to criticize it. And normally when I go to a movie like that, the movie ends up being better than I expected. Happened to me with Mad Max Fury Road. Happened to me with X-Men Days of Future Past. Happened to me with Guardians of the Galaxy. So I'm hoping it's going to be 4 for 4.
Yeah. Because, you know, you really, at this point, you can't expect J.K. Rowling to help. And even if she's only partially writing, she's still involved in it.
Yeah, so that's why I'm, like, really skeptical. I'm just like, we know Rowling can come up with a good concept. Harry Potter, evidence that she can come up with a good concept, and you can give her props. She wrote this story while she was homeless. This story helped her out of homelessness. She would write this on cafe napkins. So you can give her props for coming up with this like entire complex story in that kind of format. But she definitely, after she became famous, you'd expect someone like that to be a little bit more humble, but she kind of got like too big for her britches. Yeah. And really developed its ego, like, ooh, look at me, I wrote Harry Potter, one of the most popular series in the world. Like, yeah, but you were, like, we'd expect someone like you to be homeless, because that's or not homeless, to be relatable, because you've been in a situation that a lot of people can relate to. You used to be one of us. Yeah. So, but instead of being that person I can relate to, you're just kind of a snob, and I don't want to relate to you. Yeah. So I'm really skeptical, like, what if this movie's actually bad because J.K. Rowling's like, I wrote Harry Potter, so everything I write is pure gold.
And I remember she had written some other books. I found out a few years ago. She actually did write other books, but I've never heard of them.
It came out, I do remember the book. I don't remember what it was called, but I do remember the book she wrote. It was the first non-young adult book that she wrote. I don't know if it was, they called it in, like, an adult novel. I don't know if, like, adult novel is in, like, adult novel or, like, just not a kid novel.
No, I think it was not a kid novel. I don't think she could get away with writing an adult novel.
But I don't remember what it was called, but I do remember that book coming out and her, like, writing something, like, people making a big deal because she was writing something that wasn't Harry Potter. And now she's living up to this expectation that she has to write Harry Potter and Harry Potter only. So I think that's why she's mainly focusing on that and not writing other books. And I mean, honey, you don't really have to write other books. Look at all these royalties that you're making right now.
She's raking in.
I mean, you can only get butterbeer at Universal Studios because she won't let them bottle it because she doesn't want people to have the recipe for butterbeer. Butterbeer. You can't have the recipe for butterbeer, and that's why they don't sell it in bottles. Because if they sell it in a bottle, they have to put the recipe on it, and she doesn't want people to have that recipe. So you can only get it at Universal, and if you go to Universal, you have to go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter to get it. So as soon as you step in there, she's like, cha-ching, you buy a butterbeer, cha-ching. It's like, she's making royalties off of all this crap, and there's like so many things, like Harry Potter merchandise that you can get at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter that you can't get anywhere else, so people are going to buy that stuff, and so she's like, cha-ching, so she's making a lot of money. It's not like she is strapped for money. She has the money, but she continues to do more with Harry Potter, mainly just because she's, at this point, expected to do more with Harry Potter. Like I said, I am I think cautiously optimistic about Fantastic Beasts, but I'm definitely going to go in there with a mindset that this movie could go really good or really bad, and I have to be prepared for the latter. I have to prepare myself. That's what I did with X-Men, because we all know X-Men movies have a reputation. So when Days of Future Past came out, you better believe I did not want to go see that movie. I only went to see that movie because I was with a group of friends and they said, hey, let's go see Days of Future Past. And I was like, oh, okay. As long as I tell myself it's bad, it won't affect me as much. And then it ended up being really good. So I'm hoping that suffers from that syndrome. I shouldn't say suffer, but it has like that thing happen where I go in thinking it's going to be really bad, but it ends up being good. One can only hope. I mean, we'll never know until it comes out.
Apparently she wrote a book, you know, these were adult novels, and then like some sort of like mystery series that was like a trilogy, right. It looks like. And she popped all 3 books out within a couple years. So that, I mean, I don't know how good those are, but the fact that I've never heard of them and I never hear anyone mention them
Right.
You know.
It just goes to show how good they are.
Yeah, and really, honestly, I think Harry Potter is all she has. No one wants anything besides Harry Potter from her.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah. I think we pretty much talked about the topic and so much more.
Yeah, I think we've been talking for like, what, an hour?
Probably more.
It happens.
Because, like, there's just so much
There's so much to talk about.
When it comes to Harry Potter. And neither of us can say Harry Potter.
Harry
Potter. Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, I think we'll end it here. We've been talking for a while anyway.
Yeah, a while. Like, it's 10:30.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're criticizing Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I don't think we mentioned it, but angelrin is right off screen.
Woo! I'm playing Fire Emblem.
She's playing Fire Emblem.
And they're at my house. Yay!
Yeah.
It's my birthday.
Yeah.
Well, almost.
I didn't want to hog the camera. I've already been in 2 topic videos.
Yeah, and I don't. And since I forgot to bring my tripod, we're having to prop the camera up.
I got this makeshift like stand of like a
Box.
Deadpool cup and a Fallout box and a box of tissues.
You guys can't see it, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's work of art, modern art. I'm gonna put my name on that and try to sell it for like $2 million.
Now you'll probably get $3 million.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Gotta think big.
Royalties.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, this is it. The video is over. If you have a topic you'd like me to talk about, if you're on YouTube, you can comment below to what you want me to talk about. If you're on Tumblr, you can send me an ask and put topic, and then whatever you want me to talk about. Just make sure to talk about something fictional. I don't want to really talk about real world stuff, and make sure it's something specific enough that you actually have something to talk about, and it's not just why do you like X or what do you think about Y. So, yeah. Thank you for watching.
Peace.